Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good day everyone. My name is Sunairan. So in this good opportunity, I would like to make a video presentation as my assignment for my academic speaking lesson to our mentor Sir Muhammad Chandra SPD MAD. So here we are. So about the title of my presentation, I would like to explain about the students' learning strategies for developing speaking skills that I gathered this from a journal Syah Kuala University, Banda Aceh, in Indonesia, as my resource and references. The writers of the journal are Sofiana Magani, Dian Fajrina, and Rizaldi Hanifa. And the purpose of my presentation is to give the audience the writer's point of view in learning the strategies of developing student speaking skill used by both low and high performance, as well as the differences between the learning strategies by both groups of the learners. The reason of this research is due to the fact of many students speaking skill was still considered unsatisfactory. But before I explain the main part of my presentation, I will explain first about the outline of my presentation, just to make sure the audience understand the flow of my presentation. First, I will explain about how the researchers get their ideas in order to make this kind of journal and their care to all the students' speaking skills. Second is the literature point of view about speaking inability to oral express. Then, the literature language learning strategies in process and the classification of language learning strategies that have already been classified by many researchers experts. Next is the researcher's method on analyzing and observing several different schools as their researching object in order to get the data and prove their theories. Then we will have our discussion and finding from the data researchers gather by questionnaires and interview. Last one is the writer's conclusion about the journal they are working on. Introduction. In this globalization, English has increasingly become the medium in every domain of communication, both in local and global contexts. As a result, there are many demand for speakers who can use English effectively in every country. Among the 4 key language skills, speaking is deemed to be the most important skill that must be mastered well in learning new language. However, speaking a foreign language is not an easy to be mastered by learners. Speaking is considered the most difficult skill since it needs great courage as well as preparation to speak well in the new language. Regarding this, Brown 2004 says speaking has 5 components, namely, first one is grammar, vocabulary, conversation, fluency, and pronunciation. Students must aware of these components. Students need to be mastered the ideas in their minds about what to say. Therefore, in addition, students must be able to use correct pronunciation, or otherwise it will be difficult for listeners to understand them. Moreover, to speak fluently and correctly, they must have sufficient vocabulary and must be able to arrange their sentence that they can be understand. In reality, competency of senior high school students in Indonesia is still a matter of concern. According to recent curriculum, students are expected to be able to express and responding to sympathy. They surely face difficulties that hinder them to be competent at speaking, such as lack of vocabulary, poor pronunciation, and poor grammar. Based on the result of study at high school in Banda Aceh, it was found that students use a variety of learning strategies to enhance their progress in developing speaking skills, which is considered helping them. At least 1986 claims that the proficiency level of learner influences his choice of strategy. Some students confirm that their strategies give a greater impact towards their learning process. Meanwhile, there were also several students who thought their strategies only gave a small contribution. Review of literature. Speaking. Speaking is an ability to orally express opinion, thoughts, facts, and feeling to other people, or even animal, or even to ourselves. According to Nunan, 2003, speaking is a productive oral skills which consists of constructing systematic verbal utterance to convey meaning in a slightly different statement. Brown 2004 points out that speaking is an interactive process of constructing meaning that involving producing and receiving and processing information. Language learning strategies. White 1990 and Lewis 2008, learning strategies are commonly divided as the operation or process which are consciously or unconsciously selected and employed by the learners to learn the target language or facilitates a language task. O'Malley and Kamat 1990 states that learning strategies are special thought or behavior that individuals use to help them comprehend, learn, or retain new information. Oxford 1990 also points out the learning strategies are specific action taken by the learners to help them to own learning, to make learning easier or faster, more enjoyable, more self-directed, more effective, and more transferable. By employing the right strategies, the process of learning the language will improve significantly. Classification of language learning strategies. Language learning strategies has been classified by many researchers. Rubin 1987 categorized language learning strategies into three main parts. First one is learning strategies, second communication strategies, and social strategies. Learning strategies included all strategies that are directly related to the learner, or we call it cognitive, or those which indirectly involve the learning process, or we call it metacognitive. Cognitive strategies comprise clarification, practice, memorize, and monitoring. Planning, setting goals, and self-management belong to the metacognitive strategies. While communication strategies are strategies that less directly related to language learning since their focus is on the process of participating in a conversation and getting meaning across or clarifying the speaker's attention. Communication strategies used by speakers to overcome communication difficulties. Social strategies are those activities learners engages in which provide them an opportunities to practice their knowledge. We have other theory about language learning strategies, but unfortunately, we don't have much time to explain all of them, so I only managed to explain one. Methodology. The researchers' study was conducted at high school number 3 or SMA Negeri 3 in Banda Aceh. The subject of this study is a second-year student at SMA Negeri 3 Banda Aceh who had either low or high performance result. The students were considered high performance according to certain indicator. They are easily to master new content and talk smoothly. In order to collect data from the student, questionnaires and interviews were the main instrument used. Further points out the qualitative researchers may use written document or other artifacts to gain an understanding of the phenomenon under the study. For the questionnaires, researchers use the strategy inventory for language learning, or we call it SAIL, version 7.0, containing 50 items as an instrument for assessing language learning strategies used by the learners developed by Oxford. The questionnaires consist of 6 parts. A, memory strategies, remembering more effectively. Cognitive strategies, or we call it using mental process. C, compensation strategies, or compensating for missing knowledge. Organizing and evaluating, or we call it metacognitive strategy. And social learning with others, or we call it social strategies. Researchers use an interview involving self-observation, which enable the learners to think about what they generally do when faced with a familiar language task. The response were transcribed and translated into English. The subject were asked 5 questions, namely, first one, what do you do to improve your pronunciation? What do you do to improve your vocabulary? What do you do is to make the grammars better? What do you do to improve your fluency in speaking? What do you do to improve your conversation in speaking? Finding and the discussion. Data from the questionnaires. From the questionnaires, we categorize the result into the 2 levels of learners. Learners with low performance in speaking show low rates concerning cognitive strategy with an average 3.07, followed by effective strategy with an average of 3.20, memory strategy with an average of 3.40, and metacognitive strategy also with 3.40. So this could be interpreted as sometimes use finally the rate for social strategy with an average of 3.50 and conversation strategy with an average of 3.60 could be interpreted as usually used. On the other hand, the result obtained from high speaking performance students show an average of 3.50 for effective strategy on an average of 4.05 for memory strategy, an average of 4.06 for cognitive strategy, an average of 4.06 for conversation strategy, an average of 4.10 for social strategy, an average of 4.30 for metacognitive strategy. Finding and discussion. Yeah, we continue it. Data from the interviews. It's a little bit complicated. The students with high speaking performance respond that they train their accent by repeating and imitating sounds of words, listening to song, and watch English movie. They add that consulted dictionary, both written and audio sources such like Google Translate. They also exchange notes and ask their teachers and friends to speak with them in English. Meanwhile, the students with low speaking performance tend to ask their friends how to pronounce words correctly. Some of them also practice pronouncing words repeatedly. Others learn from English movie. They focus on how to actor pronounce words, and they had reference to repeat the words that they had here. Aside from that, there were also students who generally look up the dictionary to know how words were pronounced. One student stated that he often paid much attention to the way of teachers talk in English. When it comes to vocabulary enriching strategies, both high and low speaking performance students choose memorization. They watch English movie with English subtitle. That was if they encounter a new vocabulary, they will look up into the meaning in the dictionary and memorize and practice the words. To make their grammar become better, high performance students use various strategies such as memorizing tenses and grammar pattern along with the basic formula involving the sentence creation. Some prefer to read the articles or book in English and note the grammar. And just like high performance students, low performance students also review their school lessons, memorize the formula for sentences, and practice speaking sentence. The students also learn grammar by reading the books. They would ask a friend if they had difficulties. There were also students who said that they learned from making mistakes. Discussion. So from the result of the questionnaires, we note that learning strategies most often used by the students with low speaking performance were usually compensation and social strategies, while memory, cognitive, metacognitive, and affective strategies were not so often used. On the other hand, students with high speaking performance had a better balance in the learning strategies they use. In other words, high performance speaking students had more balance in the learning and practicing strategies that they use, and this was not found in the strategies used by the low speaking performance students. Our conclusion: the research findings show that high speaking performance students use more learning strategies compared to those with low performance. They employed 53 strategies to help them enhance their speaking ability, while the low performance students only use 29 strategies. Listening to English song or audio, cognitive; watching English movie, cognitive; reading English book or novels, it call it cognitive or metacognitive; reciting song lyric, cognitive, metacognitive; analyzing English article, reviewing lesson, cognitive; practicing with friends, that's called social; talking to themselves in English, metacognitive; using a synonym in English, conversation; and repeating words or sentence with their conversation partner to achieve better understanding. In addition, they were more aware and more creative in using these strategies, which made them more successful in completing language tasks. In the other hand, the strategies that were frequently used by low-speaking performance students were looking up to the dictionary or memorize, asking friends, social, practicing pronunciation, cognitive, using native language, conversation strategies, and memorizing sentence memory. Suggestion. So that we know that the learning strategies in developing speaking skills by students of Aceh in SMA Negeri 3, we can follow their path about the strategies in enchanting our English speaking skills too as well. Both high and low performance student strategies are good and best to be followed. All right, then that's all I want to say about my suggestion. And seems like this is the end of my presentation. Thank you for you guys' attention, and assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and have a nice day, guys.